Hello, this video is about the available tasks within Connect pipelines. What we'll do first is go over a little bit about the tasks as an overview. So Digioh Connect itself is a powerful way to collect and move your data. Using pipelines themselves, you can control what data you want and how, where, and when you want it. Within a pipeline, there are a set of tasks that are executed. There are different types of tasks available. These tasks can be moved to be in certain order so that because they will be executed from top to bottom. So there will be different types of tasks you can make, and then those tasks themselves can also have conditions on them. So if your first task should run no matter what, but your second task should only run if a certain condition is met, that is no problem. Now that we have sort of an overview of the role of tasks, let's get into each type of task. The first task is a simple, helpful task. It's a delay task. This is one where if you need to delay executing the next task or tasks in the pipeline for a certain amount of time, you can configure that in the JSON here in the value of duration. So that is a helpful task. The next task that we will talk about is the HTTP request. This is a very powerful task. It can perform an HTTP request to another service. So this can be used leveraging your existing connections that are already authenticated within Connect. You won't have to do any extra configuration for that. You can also specify how you would like the request body to be formed, whether it's form data, JSON, or text. You can access the output from your prior tasks, which is very powerful. So when making an HTTP request, if you've already had tasks that are manipulating data, you can access the manipulated data within the request and use that. After the HTTP request is complete, the response can be output that is accessible to other tasks. So whatever happens within this request can be referenced elsewhere to continue to manipulate, edit, whatever needs to be done with that output. When writing the HTTP request task, you can set specific headers. So if you have an endpoint that needs a specific header, that is simply added by clicking the green header button towards the bottom of the page. You can also specify if you'd like the response body to be text, a JSON object, a JSON array, or multiple JSON objects. And importantly, you can map parameters to update the HTTP request. So mapping parameters is something that is available as its own task, but it can also be done here within the HTTP request. This allows you to take data that has already been gathered from other tasks and update the HTTP request with that task, with that data. For instance, if you have gathered an email from a user and your HTTP request should plug in that data of the email, you can update the body, the URL, and the headers of the HTTP request with the actual input email using the map parameters. The next task is an Iterable API task. So an Iterable API task allows you to perform a function against the Iterable API. So there's functions like update a user, tracking a custom event, updating a catalog item. You will choose the Iterable API operation you would like, and then you can choose an existing connection under the connection dropdown. So if you've already connected your Iterable, the connection will be there. And you can also choose where to get the item ID or the event. Wherever you need to get the data from, you can select a specific path. That will be the data sets from other tasks or the item data or original data that comes in before any of the data is manipulated. So the next task we've mentioned briefly, but we'll get into it now. This is a map data task. So the map data task allows you to map fields from input data into different fields as output data. So it can also perform transforms on the data, which we will talk about a specific task that is a transform task later on. You can use a field, so if it's a specific field like email, you can use a field here, or you can add a value if you are just setting static text for the input and output. The output field will be how the output field will be labeled. So this is my value would be the label for the output field. And here we see the transform data once again. The next task we'll talk about is merge data. So the merge data task allows you to have multiple sources of data that you map from and put it all together. So if you need to map from multiple sources and send it all to a specific endpoint, this is where you would do it. So you would add the data set that you are going to merge, the first one, and then pick the second one, and then save. You can do this for however many paths of data that you are merging. And then once you save, that task is ready. The next task is render template. This is a very powerful task because it allows you to take your data and render a template. We would recommend a liquid template. You can choose which data you'd like to build your template, again, from any of the tasks or the item data, and then you can enter the path if necessary. We recommend using a liquid template. However, there are other options available. There are multiple output types. We would recommend JSON. And then in the template section, you would build the template that you would like to render using the available data in the Path to Model dropdown. And that is the render template task. The next task, well, set of tasks are the Salesforce tasks. So these are tasks that are tailored solutions to take JSON and send it to Salesforce to update a very specific object. So you can create an object in Salesforce, you can retrieve an object by ID or get object, you can query Salesforce for one or more records, you can also update an object by ID in Salesforce. And this leverages your already connected Salesforce integration that is in your Connect. The next task is send to pipeline. A send to pipeline task sends data from one pipeline to another. This saves you from having to write a pipeline and its tasks multiple times. To make this happen, you add a send to pipeline task, and then you need to go find the ID that is next to the name of the pipeline that you want to send the data to. Then go back to your task, and in the JSON, update the pipeline ID and save. And then wherever this send to pipeline task is located within its pipeline, it will take the data at that point, send it to the other pipeline. Whatever returns from that other pipeline will come back to this task, and then the next task within the original pipeline will continue with the data that has returned. The next task is Shopify. So with the Shopify task, you can perform a function against the Shopify API, like get customer, get order, get product. So after choosing the API operation from the dropdown, for this type of task, please note that there is a little help box that may have documentation that is very helpful from Shopify about that specific operation, or it may have information about what is needed in order to have this particular API operation function properly. The next type of task is a Snowflake query. So you can query Snowflake for one or more records. Under the Select Connection dropdown, you'll be able to see all of your previously configured Snowflake connections, and without any extra configuration, you can use those. And then please also note that you can use the parameter mappings, as we've discussed previously, to update the results within the data you've already collected. For instance, you can replace any instance of user account ID in the Snowflake result with the actual user account ID that you have collected from other tasks or pipelines. The next type of task is a task notification. So task notification is useful if you want to send an email at a certain point in a pipeline. So to do this, you would create a task notification task, and then within the JSON, you would update the recipients to be a comma separated list of the emails that you would like to receive a notification at the time that this task executes. The next type of task that we did talk about earlier, but we will talk about specifically now, is the transform data task. So you can transform data within the map data task, which is where you will most likely be using most of the transform data functionality. However, if you need to use it outside of a map data task, we have all of these options available. So take a look here or in our documentation to see if they have any transforms in the list that you are specifically looking for. The last task on our list for this video is the Yotpo task. So you can perform a function against the Yotpo API, like create or update customer, create subscriber, product star rating. You can then leverage your already connected Yotpo integration without needing to add any extra configuration. And you can hit the API for Yotpo for whatever you need with this task. If you have any other questions, please do let us know or check out our help docs at help.digioh.com. I hope this was useful and helpful and that you have a great day.